3 weeks after Valara's recovery, Jiho's stall was busier than it had been in months, not because people wanted to buy his salvaged electronics, but because they wanted to meet him, the human who had cured the incurable, the merchant who had won the scavenger hunt for a dying stranger. Jiho found the attention uncomfortable. He was just trying to run his business and pay his overdue station fees, but people kept coming. A Veltir scientist named Ralmon arrived first. He was old, his glow steady and bright with age. "I have studied grayscale plague for 30 years, he said. "I need to understand how your friend accomplished what my entire research team could not." Jiho directed him to Deho's clinic. The two scientists spent days together, with Deho explaining his approach. What fascinated Ralmon most was not the specific chemicals used but the methodology itself. "You did not follow proper testing protocols," Ralmon said, not as an accusation but as an observation. "You modified the treatment based on patient response rather than predetermined schedules. This is highly irregular." "It worked, though," Deho said. "Yes, it did. That is what I find most interesting." Ralmon studied his notes. "Veltir medical science is very precise. We calculate everything exactly, follow established procedures, and only deviate when absolutely necessary. But your approach was almost entirely deviation. Humans are good at that," Deho said. "We make a plan, then we change the plan when reality does not match our expectations. We call it adapting." Ralmon wanted to publish their findings together, Deho agreed, but only if all the research was made freely available to any medical institution that needed it. No patents, no profit, just knowledge that could save lives. The collaboration between human and Veltir medical approaches became a topic of discussion across the scientific community. Some praised it as revolutionary, others criticized it as reckless and dangerous, but nobody could argue with the results. Meanwhile, Valara returned to Jiho's stall with Kira. The mother was fully recovered now, her glow bright and healthy. "She carried a large wrapped package for you," she said, setting it on his counter. "A gift." Jiho unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a sculpture hand-carved from some kind of luminescent stone. It showed a human and a Veltir child holding hands, both figures glowing softly. At the base was an inscription in both Galactic Common and Korean. "You saw value where others saw nothing." "This is beautiful," Jiho said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I cannot accept something so valuable." "You gave me my life back," Valara said firmly. "This is nothing compared to that. Besides, I am an artisan. Creating beauty is what I do, and I want to do more." She explained her idea. She wanted to partner with Jiho, creating art pieces that could be sold to fund a new medical research initiative, a collaboration between humans and Veltir, studying diseases that both species had considered unsolvable. "I am just a merchant," Jiho protested. "I don't know anything about running a medical research program." "You know about helping people," Valara said. "That is more important than medical knowledge. The knowledge we can learn. The compassion to use it correctly, that is rarer." Other humans on the station heard about the project and wanted to contribute. The elderly woman who had donated her week's pay volunteered to handle finances. Hiron offered her ship for transporting medical supplies. Taijin agreed to maintain the equipment. What started as one man helping one child was becoming a community effort. The Galactic Council sent Thelnara back to observe the developments. She spent weeks on Station Velmora, documenting everything she saw. "This is unprecedented," she told Jiho one day. "I have observed hundreds of species across the galaxy. Each has their strengths. The Veltir are master artisans, the Krell are warriors, the Thracians are engineers. But humans have something unique." "What is that?" Jiho asked. "You refuse to accept that anything is impossible," Thelnara said. "Other species see a problem without a solution and move on to different problems. Humans see a problem without a solution and decide to create a solution that never existed before. It is illogical. It is inefficient. It should not work. But somehow it does." She was writing a report for the Galactic Council, recommending that human perspectives be formally consulted on problems that other species had marked as unsolvable. The idea was controversial. Humans were newcomers to galactic civilization, barely a century out from their home system, but the evidence was undeniable. Word of the grayscale plague cure spread far beyond Station Velmora. Veltir families from across the sector began arriving, seeking treatment. Daeho's small clinic could not handle the demand. That was when something unexpected happened. The station administrator, a gruff Thracian named Kolvan, approached Jiho. "Your activities are attracting people to this station," Kolvan said. "For the first time in 5 years, we have more ships docking here, not fewer. Businesses are opening instead of closing. You are saving this station." "I am just trying to help sick people," Jiho said. "Yes, and in doing so you have given Velmora a purpose again," Kolvan said. "I am waiving your stall fees. Permanently. And I am allocating station resources to expand the medical clinic. This station will become a center for human-Velthir medical collaboration." Jiho was stunned. He had been weeks away from losing his stall, living on the edge of poverty. Now suddenly his business was secure, but the biggest surprise came from Kira. The little girl appeared at his stall one evening, her mother beside her. "I have decided what I want to do when I grow up," Kira announced. "What is that?" Jiho asked. "I want to be a doctor, like Daeho. I want to help people the way you helped my mother." Valara smiled. "The Velthir Assembly is offering her a scholarship to their best medical academy. She will be the youngest student they have ever accepted. She will study both Velthir and human medical approaches." Kira held up her bag of toys, the same ones she had tried to sell to Jiho weeks ago. "I am keeping these forever. To remember that humans see value in things others think are worthless. That is what I want to do too. Find cures in places where everyone else has stopped looking." After they left, Jiho sat alone in his stall, looking at the sculpture Valara had made. The human and Velthir child holding hands, working together. Hiron stopped by later that evening. "Have you seen the news feeds? They are calling you a hero across 3 sectors." "I am not a hero," Jiho said. "I just could not walk away from a crying child." "That is exactly what makes you a hero," Hiron said. "Most people would have walked away. You didn't." Tajin arrived carrying a bottle of earth whiskey, expensive and rare this far from home. Figured we should celebrate not dying in the scavenger hunt. They sat together, the 3 of them, drinking and talking about everything that had happened. It seemed impossible that just a month ago, Jiho had been counting his last credits, wondering how he would survive another week. Daeho joined them later, exhausted but satisfied. "I treated 12 patients today. 12 Velthir who had grayscale plague. All of them are responding to the treatment. We are actually doing this. We are curing an incurable disease." "You are doing this," Jiho corrected. "I just helped a little." "You did more than that," Daeho said seriously. "You reminded me why I became a doctor in the first place. Not for money or prestige, but to help people who need it. I had forgotten that somewhere along the way. You helped me remember." As the night went on and the bottle got emptier, they talked about what came next. The medical research program was growing. More humans were arriving at the station, drawn by the news of what was happening here. Station Velmora was transforming from a dying outpost into something new. "We are building something important here," Hiron said. "Not just a medical program, but proof that humans and other species can work together. That we can solve problems together that none of us could solve alone." "To impossible things," Taijin said, raising his glass. "To impossible things," they echoed. Jiho looked around at his friends, at the sculpture on his counter, at the small carved bird that Kira had made. A month ago, he had been alone, struggling and hopeless. Now he was surrounded by people working together to help others. His communication device buzzed. Another message from someone seeking help. A Velthir family whose child was sick. They had heard about the human merchant who performed miracles. Jiho smiled and started typing a response. He was not a miracle worker. He was just someone who refused to accept that anything was truly impossible. And apparently that was enough to change the world. Or at least, to change one small corner of it. Which, as it turned out, was exactly where all big changes began. Daeho did not sleep for 2 days straight. Jiho watched him work in the clinic, surrounded by medical equipment and the chemical compounds they had salvaged from the frigate. The doctor's hands moved with precision, mixing, synthesizing, testing, and mixing again. "This has never been tried before," Daeho said for the 10th time, his eyes bloodshot from exhaustion. "I am working from theory and educated guesses. This could work or it could make things worse." "It will work," Jiho said, though he had no way of knowing that. He just needed to believe it. News of the human team's victory in the scavenger hunt had spread across the station. Other humans who lived on Velmora started showing up at Jiho's stall asking questions. What was he doing with the prize money? Was it true he was trying to cure grayscale plague? Jiho told them the truth. Within hours, other humans started contributing. A mechanic donated 200 credits. A maintenance worker offered 50. A restaurant owner gave 100. They were all struggling themselves, but they wanted to help. Why are you all doing this? Jiho asked one elderly human woman who donated her entire week's pay. Because that is what humans do, she said simply. We help each other even when it does not make sense. Especially when it does not make sense. The Velthir community heard about it too. Kira's neighbors, people who barely knew her family, started bringing food and supplies. They could not afford credits, but they could make sure Kira and her mother did not go hungry while they waited. On the second day, a Galactic Council observer arrived at the station. Her name was Thelnara, a tall insectoid being with multiple sensory antennae. She found Jiho at his stall. I am here to understand what is happening, she said in perfect Galactic Common. The reports I am receiving seem unusual. A human merchant is attempting to cure an incurable Velthir disease. Not attempting, Jiho said. Going to cure. The confidence of your species is remarkable, Thelnara observed. Some would call it arrogance. Some would, Jiho agreed. We call it hope. Thelnara spent the next day observing everything. She watched Deho work in his clinic, studied his methods, interviewed other humans on the station. She seemed fascinated by something, though Jiho could not tell what. On the third day, Deho finally emerged from his clinic carrying a small sealed container. He looked terrible, like he might collapse at any moment, but his eyes were bright with exhaustion and triumph. It is ready, he said. I think, maybe, probably. That is not very reassuring, Jiho said. It is the best I can do, Deho replied. The science is sound. The molecular structure should interact correctly with Velthir cellular biology, but I have never tested it on an actual patient. They brought the medicine to Kira's home, a small dwelling in the lower residential section. The little girl opened the door, her glow even dimmer than before. Behind her, Jiho could see her mother lying on a bed. Valara's skin had turned almost completely gray. You came, Kira whispered. I was so scared you would not come. I made a promise, Jiho said. Deho approached Valara's bed. The sick woman could barely open her eyes. Her breathing was shallow and labored. I am going to administer the treatment, he explained gently. I need you to understand that this is experimental. It might not work. Are you willing to try? Valara's voice came out as a whisper. My daughter believes in you. That is enough for me. Deho prepared the injection carefully. His hands were steady despite his exhaustion. He administered the medicine and then set up monitoring equipment. Now we wait. The first few hours were agonizing. Valara's condition did not improve, but it did not get worse either. Kira sat beside her mother's bed, holding her hand and refusing to leave. Other humans from the station came to wait with them. Hiren brought food. Tajin checked the medical equipment to make sure it was working correctly. The elderly woman who had donated her week's pay sat in the corner, quietly praying in Korean. Thelnara was there too, observing everything with her multifaceted eyes. Your species is strange, she said to Jiho. Most civilizations would use a discovery like this for political advantage. They would demand payment, recognition, or favors. But you simply give it away to help one child. Is that strange? Jiho asked. Very strange, Thelnara confirmed. Also very human from what I am learning. On the second day, something changed. Valara's skin began to show tiny flickers of light, just small spots at first, barely visible. But they were there. Is that normal? Kira asked, her voice filled with desperate hope. Deho checked his monitors. I don't know. This is all new territory. By the third day, the flickers had spread. Valara's breathing became stronger. She opened her eyes fully for the first time in weeks. Kira, she said, why are there so many people in our home? Kira burst into tears and hugged her mother tightly. But Deho looked worried. Her body is reacting unpredictably. The treatment is working, but not exactly as I calculated. Her cellular structure is changing too fast in some areas, too slow in others. What does that mean? Jiho asked. It means I need to adjust the treatment, but I am working blind here. I am making decisions based on instinct, rather than proven science. Then trust your instinct, Jiho said. Deho worked through the night, modifying the dosage and treatment schedule. He was not following any medical protocols because no protocols existed for this. He was doing what humans had always done when faced with impossible problems. making educated guesses, trusting intuition, and adjusting on the fly. It was not elegant. It was not by the book, but it was working. By the fourth day, Valara was sitting up in bed. Her skin's glow had returned to about 50% normal. She was eating food and talking with Kira. The little girl had not stopped smiling. "I cannot believe it," Valara said when she saw Jiho. "You are the human who helped my daughter. I owe you my life." "You do not owe me anything," Jiho said. "Just get better." On the seventh day, Deho declared the treatment successful. Valara's condition had stabilized. Her glow was back to 90% normal and still improving. She would make a full recovery. It was the first documented cure of grayscale plague in Velthir history. The news spread fast. Medical institutions across the galaxy sent inquiries. The Velthir Assembly requested detailed reports. Scientists wanted to study Deho's methods, but Jiho was not thinking about any of that. He was watching Kira play with her mother, both of them laughing together. The little girl's bag of toys sat in the corner, treasured and safe. Telnara approached him one final time before leaving the station. "I will be filing a report with the Galactic Council. What you and your fellow humans have accomplished here is significant. We just helped one person," Jiho said. "You helped one person in a way that could help millions," Telnara corrected. "Your species approaches problems differently than others. Where we see impossibility, you see challenge. Where we follow established protocols, you trust intuition and adaptation. It is inefficient and illogical, yet somehow it works. That is the human way," Jiho said with a small smile. After Telnara left, Jiho returned to his stall. He was broke again. The prize money was gone, spent on medicine and materials. He still could not pay his station fees. He would probably lose his stall by the end of the month, but for the first time in years he did not feel like a failure. His communication device buzzed. It was a message from Valara. "Thank you is not enough, but it is all I have. Thank you for giving me more time with my daughter. Thank you for being human." Jiho smiled and looked at the small carved bird that Kira had made, which now sat on his counter. He had kept it as a reminder. Sometimes the most worthless things in the world were actually priceless, and sometimes helping one person could change everything. The morning of the scavenger hunt arrived cold and gray. Jiho stood in the docking bay with Hierin and Taijin, watching other teams prepare their ships. There were 60 teams registered this year. Most of them looked professional and well-equipped. "We are going to die," Taijin said flatly. "Probably not," Hierin replied cheerfully. "Maybe just get badly injured." Jiho ignored them both and reviewed the rules one more time on his datapad. The goal was simple. Retrieve a functional quantum core from any derelict ship in the debris field. First team to return with a working core won 10,000 credits. Second place got 5,000. Third place got 2,000. Everyone else got nothing. A tall alien with 4 arms approached their group. He wore expensive armor and had the confident walk of someone who had done this many times before. "You are the human team?" "That is us," Hierin said. The alien laughed. "I have been doing this for 12 years. I have never seen humans compete before. This should be entertaining. Try not to die too quickly." After he left, Taijin grunted. "I really do not like him." "Use that feeling," Jiho said. "Let it motivate you." The station administrator's voice boomed across the docking bay. "All teams to your ships. The scavenger hunt begins in 10 minutes. They climbed aboard Hierin's ship. It was cramped and smelled like engine oil, but Hierin kept it running well. The main cabin had 3 seats, a small cargo area, and equipment that looked like it had been repaired 100 times. "Everyone strap in," Hierin said, sliding into the pilot seat. "This is going to be rough." The countdown began. Jiho felt his heart pounding. He had no business being here. He was a failed merchant, not a salvager or adventurer. But he thought of Kira waiting back at the station, thought of her mother getting weaker every day, and he pushed the fear down. 3, 2, 1. Launch. 60 ships burst out of the station at once. It was chaos. Ships dodged around each other, racing toward the debris field. Hierin piloted aggressively, cutting between larger vessels and using every bit of speed her modified engines could provide. "Where's everyone going?" Jiho asked, watching the scanner. "That big cluster to the north," Hierin said. "There's a destroyed carrier there. Everyone knows it has multiple quantum cores, so we should go there too?" "No way," Hierin said. "Too crowded. Too much competition. We need to think different." Tajin was studying a map on his datapad. There is an old frigate on the eastern edge. Human design from before the Coalition War. Nobody is heading that way. Why not? Shiho asked. Because it is supposedly stripped clean. Salvagers have been over it dozens of times already. Jiho looked at Hyerin. What do you think? I think we are humans, and that is a human ship, Hyerin said. Maybe we will notice something others missed. She changed course, heading away from the main cluster. The debris field was massive, filled with the wreckage of battles fought decades ago. Broken ships drifted in the darkness, their hull plating torn and their systems dead. The frigate appeared on their scanners. It was old, its Earth military markings faded and barely visible. Hyerin brought the ship in close, scanning for entry points. There, Taijin said, pointing at a damaged airlock. We can breach through there. Most of the ship is depressurized, Hyerin warned. We will need suits. They put on environment suits and prepared their equipment. Hyerin docked her ship against the frigate's hull, and Taijin worked on opening the damaged airlock. It took him 15 minutes of careful work, but the hatch finally opened. Inside, the frigate was dark and cold. Their suit lights cut through the blackness, revealing corridors filled with frozen debris. Everything valuable had clearly been taken long ago. We are wasting time here, Taijin said. There is nothing left. But Jiho was thinking. This was a human military ship. He had studied human military history as a kid back on Earth. What class of frigate is this? Taijin checked his scanner. Looks like a Sol class. Common design from the 2110s. Jiho felt a spark of hope. Sol-class frigates had redundant systems. The military built them with backup quantum cores in case the primary one was damaged in battle. So there might be a second core somewhere? Hyerin asked. If it has not been found already, Jiho said. The backup core would be in the secondary engineering bay, not the main one. Most salvagers would check the main bay and then leave. They made their way through the dark corridors. The ship creaked and groaned around them, its structure unstable after decades in space. Twice they had to find alternate routes when passages were blocked by collapsed bulkheads. The secondary engineering bay was deep in the ship, past several sealed doors. Taijin worked on each one patiently, his practiced hands making quick work of the ancient locking mechanisms. When they finally reached the bay, Jiho's light swept across the room and landed on something that made his heart jump. There, in a protective housing, was a quantum core. It looked intact. Is it functional? Hyerin asked. Taijin approached carefully with his scanner. He studied the readings for a long moment. It is in standby mode. It should work. They extracted the core carefully. It was heavy, about the size of a large backpack. As they were securing it, Jiho noticed something else in the corner of the bay. A sealed cargo container marked with medical symbols. Wait, he said. Check that container. Taijin opened it. Inside were rows of sealed packages. Medical supplies from the old Earth military. Most were probably useless after so many years, but some were base chemical compounds that did not degrade easily. These could be useful, Taijin said. Some of these compounds are expensive to synthesize. They loaded everything into carry bags and started back toward their ship. They had what they needed. Now they just had to get back to the station before anyone else. But as they approached their docking point, alarms started blaring on their suits. 3 ships were approaching fast. Mercenary vessels. Those are Krell ships, Hyerin said, her voice tight. They are pirates. They must have tracked us. Can we outrun them? Jiho asked. Maybe, but they will shoot at us. My ship is not built for combat. The Krell ship surrounded them as soon as they exited the frigate. A transmission came through. Give us your salvage, humans. Do that and we let you live, Jiho looked at Taijin and Hyerin. They had come so far. They could not give up now. Any ideas? Jiho asked. Taijin was staring at his datapad, studying the frigate's systems. The ship still has residual power. The weapons are dead, but the point defense turrets might still have functional targeting systems. Can you activate them? Hyerin asked. It would take hours to properly repair and restart them. We do not have hours, Jiho said. Taijin smiled grimly. Who said anything about properly repairing them? Give me 5 minutes. He went back into the frigate. The Krell ships were getting impatient, moving closer. Jiho and Hyerin loaded the quantum core onto their ship and waited, hoping Taijin knew what he was doing. Exactly 4 minutes later, the frigate's external lights suddenly came on. Then its point defense turrets activated, their targeting systems locking onto the Krell ships. The turrets could not fire, they had no power for that. But the Krell did not know that. Their ships scattered, thinking they were under attack. In the confusion, Hyaran fired up her engines and blasted away from the frigate at maximum speed. The Krell realized the trick and started to pursue, but Taejin had one more surprise. The frigate's old reactor, pushed beyond its limits by his hasty repairs, suddenly overloaded. It did not explode completely, but it released enough energy to create a massive electromagnetic pulse that disabled the Krell ship's systems temporarily. That was insane, Hyaran shouted as they raced toward the station. Taejin climbed back into his seat. You said 5 minutes. I did it in 4. They checked the scanners. No other teams were ahead of them. They were going to win. Station Velmora appeared in the distance. Hyaran pushed the engines as hard as they would go. They docked in the competition bay with alarms blaring, announcing their arrival. The station administrator verified their quantum core. Functional. Team Last Hope wins first place. 10,000 credits. Around them, other teams were just starting to return. The 4-armed alien from earlier stared at them in disbelief. How did humans win? You had no experience. Jiho smiled tiredly. We did not know we couldn't win, so we just tried anyway. But there was no time to celebrate. Jiho took the prize credits and immediately transferred 3,000 to Diho. Buy the materials. Start making the medicine right now. Then he collapsed into a chair, exhausted but hopeful. They had done the impossible part. Now they just needed Daeho to do his impossible part. And maybe, just maybe, they could save Kira's mother. Daeho's clinic was located in one of the older sections of Station Velmora. The walls were stained with age and the lighting was poor, but it was clean. Daeho had always been particular about cleanliness. When Jiho entered, he found his old friend bent over a medical scanner, examining something on the screen. Jiho, Daeho said without looking up. You look terrible. Thanks, Jiho replied. You look pretty rough yourself. Daeho finally turned around and smiled. He was thinner than Jiho remembered, with dark circles under his eyes. Running a clinic on a dying station probably did not pay well either. So tell me about this sick child. Jiho explained everything. Kira, her dying mother, the grayscale plague, the impossible amount of money needed for medicine. Daeho listened quietly, his expression growing more serious with each detail. Grayscale plague, Daeho said when Jiho finished. I have read about it. The Velthir medical community considers it incurable. Their best doctors have been trying to solve it for decades. I know, Jiho said, but I made a promise to that little girl. There has to be something we can do. Daeho leaned back in his chair. Why did you promise her anything? You barely have enough credits to survive yourself. Jiho was silent for a moment. She reminded me of Minji. Understanding crossed Daeho's face. He had known Jiho's sister. He had been there at the end, had tried to help when no one else would. I see. Will you help me? Jiho asked. Daeho stood up and walked to his medical computer. Let me pull up everything we have on grayscale plague. Maybe there is something the Velthir doctors missed. For the next hour, they searched through medical databases. The Velthir were a silicon-based species very different from carbon-based humans. Their medical technology was advanced in many ways, but it was built specifically for their unique biology. Grayscale plague attacked their cellular structure in a way that their medicines could not treat. Here, Daeho said suddenly, pointing at his screen. Look at this. Jiho moved closer. The screen showed a molecular breakdown of the plague. I do not understand any of this. The Velthir cannot synthesize a cure because their medical approach is too specialized, Daeho explained, his voice getting excited. They are trying to fight the plague using methods designed for silicon-based biology. But what if we approach it differently? What do you mean? Humans have been solving medical problems for thousands of years using different methods. We think differently. We try things that seem crazy to other species. Daeho pulled up another screen. Look at this. There is an old Earth antibiotic called tetracycline. Useless for humans against this kind of disease, obviously, but the molecular structure is similar to what we need. If we modify it and combine it with synthesized enzymes, we might be able to create something that works on Velthir biology. Jiho felt hope rising in his chest. You can do that? Maybe, Daeho said. It is just a theory. It has never been tested. It might not work at all, or it might make things worse. But it is a chance. How long would it take to make this medicine? If I had the right materials, maybe 2 days of constant work. And the materials. How much do they cost? Deho checked his supply databases. His face fell. 3,000 credits. And that is if I can find suppliers who still come to this station. Jiho did the math in his head. He needed 4,800 credits total. Even if Deho could make the medicine, they still needed money to buy the materials. There has to be a way, Jiho said. Deho rubbed his face tiredly. There might be one way. It is dangerous and stupid, but it is the only option I can think of. Tell me. The station is running its annual scavenger hunt in 3 days, Deho said. Teams compete to retrieve valuable salvage from the debris field outside the station. First prize is 10,000 credits. Jiho had heard of the scavenger hunt. It was famous across this sector. Teams of experienced salvagers, bounty hunters, and mercenaries competed to find and retrieve working technology from old wrecked ships. People died in the hunt every year. I have never done anything like that, Jiho said. I would not last 5 minutes out there. Probably not alone, Deho agreed. But you know people. You could build a team, Jiho thought about it. He did know people. Not many, but a few. Hierin, he said suddenly. The crazy pilot, she owes me a favor. I helped her repair her ship last year. Anyone else? Maybe Tajin. The engineer. He is grumpy, but he is good at fixing things quickly. Deho nodded slowly. A pilot, an engineer, and you. It is not much of a team compared to the others who will be competing. But humans have won with worse odds. You really think we can do this? I think you have to try, Deho said. Because there is no other way to get that money in time. Jiho left the clinic with a plan forming in his mind. It was a terrible plan, full of risks and things that could go wrong, but it was a plan. He found Hierin at the docking bay working on her ship. She was a small woman with short hair and oil stains on her face. Her ship was a modified cargo shuttle that had seen better days. Jiho, she called out when she saw him. Come to admire my beautiful ship? I came to ask for a favor, Jiho said. Hierin climbed down from the ship's engine compartment. The favor where I owed you one, or a new favor? The one where you owe me. Figures. What do you need? Jiho explained the situation. Hierin listened while cleaning her hands on a dirty rag. So you want me to fly into a debris field full of dangerous wrecks, compete against professional salvagers and mercenaries, and risk my ship and my life to help a kid you just met? Hierin summarized. Yes. And we get to keep any prize money after we buy the medicine. Whatever is left, we split 3 ways. Hierin thought about it for exactly 5 seconds. I am in. Just like that? You helped me when I needed it, Hierin said simply. Besides, I have never won the scavenger hunt before. It would be fun to beat all those smug professionals. Finding Taijin was harder. The old engineer lived in the maintenance tunnels, avoiding people. Jiho had to search for an hour before he found him. Taijin was working on a broken water recycler when Jiho approached. He looked up with his usual scowl. What? I need your help, Jiho said. No. I have not even told you what it is yet. Don't care. Still no. Jiho sat down next to him. A little girl's mother is dying. I promise to help. I need someone who can fix things fast under pressure. You are the best I know. Taijin continued working on the recycler. Lots of people are dying. Not my problem. You are right, Jiho said. It is not your problem, it is mine. But I am asking anyway. Taijin was silent for a long time. Then he sighed deeply. When is this stupid thing happening? 3 days. The scavenger hunt. That is a good way to get killed. Probably. You are an idiot. Definitely. Taijin put down his tools. Fine, I will do it. But if I die, I am going to haunt you. Deal. That night, Jiho sent a message to Kira. Making progress. Stay strong, her response came back quickly. Thank you, human. Mother is getting weaker, but she is still fighting. She says she wants to meet the kind human who helped us. Jiho stared at the message. 3 days. They had 3 days to do something that professionals spent months preparing for. 3 days to compete against teams with better equipment, more experience, and actual combat skills. It was impossible. But Jiho was starting to realize that humans did not really care about what was supposed to be impossible. They just tried anyway and figured it out as they went. He pulled up the scavenger hunt registration and signed up his team. Team name Last Hope, it seemed appropriate. The lights flickered again in the lower corridors of Station Velmora. Jiho barely noticed anymore. He sat behind his small stall, surrounded by boxes of salvaged electronics and broken machinery that nobody wanted to buy. The station was dying, and so was his business. He counted the credits in his account for the third time that day. 215. That was all he had left. Rent was due in 5 days, and he needed at least 400 credits to keep his stall. Jiho rubbed his tired eyes and leaned back against the cold metal wall. The station corridor was nearly empty. Most merchants had already left Velmora for better opportunities. Only the desperate ones remained, and Jiho was definitely one of them. He had been trying to make a living out here for 2 years now, ever since he left Earth. The galaxy was supposed to be full of opportunities for humans. That was what the recruitment posters had said. They lied. A small sound made him look up. Someone was approaching his stall. Jiho straightened up, forcing a smile. A customer was a customer, even in a place like this. But it was not a customer. It was a child. The little alien girl stood barely 3 feet tall. Her skin had a faint blue glow that seemed dimmer than it should be. Jiho had seen Velthir people before. They usually glowed brighter than this. Her large eyes were wet with tears, and she clutched a worn cloth bag against her chest. "Hello," Jiho said gently. "Are you lost? Where are your parents?" The girl looked up at him. She was trembling. "Please, human. Please help me." Jiho came around the counter and knelt down to her level. "What is wrong? Are you hurt?" The girl shook her head. Her small hands fumbled with the bag, and she opened it carefully. Then she turned it upside down on his counter. Objects tumbled out, clattering against the metal surface. Toys. They were all toys. There were small carved figurines made from what looked like wood. A broken music box that probably played some Velthir lullaby. Colorful stones arranged on strings to make necklaces. Little dolls with stitched faces. The kind of things a child would treasure. "Take my toys, human," the girl said, her voice breaking. "I need money to purchase medicine for my mother. Please, please buy them." Jiho stared at the collection of handmade toys. They were worthless. No merchant in the galaxy would buy these. He could see that each one was made with care and love, but that did not give them any market value. These were the precious belongings of a child, nothing more. "What is your name?" Jiho asked softly. "Kira," the girl whispered. "Kira, these toys are very nice, but I cannot—" "Please!" Kira cried out, fresh tears rolling down her glowing cheeks. "I went to all the other merchants. They all said no. You are my last hope. My mother is very sick. The doctors say she has grayscale plague. They say she will die without medicine. But the medicine costs 5,000 credits. I do not have that much. Nobody will help us." Jiho felt something twist in his chest. Grayscale plague. He had heard of it. It was a disease that affected Velthir people, turning their glowing skin gray and dim until they simply stopped living. The galactic medical databases listed it as incurable. "Where is your father?" Jiho asked. Kira looked down at her feet. "He died 3 years ago. It is just me and mother now. She is all I have. Please, human, please, I will give you everything I own. Just please help me buy the medicine." Jiho picked up one of the carved figurines. It was a small bird, simple but beautiful. The child had probably spent hours making these with her mother. They represented everything she had in the world, and she was willing to give it all away to save the one person she loved. He thought of his own sister, Minji. She had died when Jiho was 20 years old. She had been sick, and he had not had enough money for her treatment. He had begged, borrowed, and tried everything, but it had not been enough. He still remembered holding her hand as she slipped away, remembered promising himself that he would never be that helpless again. But here he was, years later, still helpless. Still broke, still unable to help anyone, even himself, Kira, he said carefully. "These toys, they are not worth 5,000 credits. They are not worth even 50 credits in the market. I cannot sell them for what you need." The little girl's face crumpled. She fell to her knees, sobbing. "Please, please, please. I have nothing else. What do I do? I cannot let my mother die. I cannot." Jiho stood there frozen. Every logical part of his brain screamed at him to walk away. He had his own problems. He could barely feed himself. He was about to lose his stall. Getting involved would only make things worse. But logic had nothing to do with what he did next. Jiho reached into his pocket and pulled out his credit chip. He transferred 200 credits to Kira's account information, which she gave him with shaking hands. It was nearly everything he had. "This is all I have right now," Jiho said. "It is not much, but take it." Kira looked at the credit transfer notification on her small device. Her eyes went wide. You are giving me money, but I have nothing to give you that is worth this much." Jiho carefully gathered all of her toys and placed them back in her bag. Then he handed the bag to her. "Keep your toys, Kira. They are worth more than credits. They are your memories." "But I need 5,000 credits," Kira said, her voice small and lost. "This is only 200. It is not enough." "I know," Jiho said. He took a deep breath. "Give me 3 days. I will find a way to get the rest." "How?" Kira asked, hope and disbelief mixing in her voice. Jiho had absolutely no idea how. He was lying to a crying child, making promises he probably could not keep, but looking into those desperate eyes, he could not just do nothing. "I will find a way," he repeated. "Humans are good at finding ways. Go home to your mother now. Stay with her. I will contact you in 3 days." Kira threw her arms around Jiho's waist, hugging him tightly. "Thank you, human. Thank you so much." After she left, Jiho sat alone in his stall, staring at his credit balance. 15 credits remaining. He had just given away everything he had to a stranger based on a promise he had no way of keeping. He was an idiot. But for the first time in years, he felt like maybe he was the right kind of idiot. Jiho pulled up his communication device and scrolled through his contacts. He stopped at one name. Daiho. His old friend from Earth, now working as a doctor somewhere on the station. If anyone could help him figure this out, it would be Daiho. He sent a message. "Need your help. It is about a sick Velthir child. Can we meet?" The response came back almost immediately. "My clinic. 1 hour." Jiho closed up his stall and started walking. He had 3 days to find 4,800 credits and somehow cure an incurable disease. It was impossible. But humans had a habit of doing impossible things.